Okay, recording has started, and so we will officially begin the meeting. In terms of introductions, I think most everyone who is joining us here knows all of us, but I will just introduce myself very quickly. My name is Nicole Heath. I am the Director of Hazardous Materials Programs here in Contra Costa County, and I am also the Chair of the Martinez Oversight Committee. The Martinez Oversight Committee is pursuing two different activities right now. One is the community risk assessment, which was looking at the effects of the soil from the spent catalyst release. And then the second part is the incident investigation root cause analysis. The incident investigation root cause analysis portion is really meant to get into the exact contributing and root causes and management system failures as to why the spent catalyst was released from the Martinez refining company, taking a look at what corrective actions may be necessary to prevent something like this from happening again. Just to kind of set the stage for everybody, we do have a couple of different activities going on right now. So as we have stated before, we do have an open investigation with the district attorney. That investigation is looking at the failure to notify on Martinez Refining Company's part in November when the release occurred. So in this incident investigation root cause analysis, we will not be looking at that failure to notify because that is part of the district attorney's investigation. Then we have our incident investigation and community risk assessment. Now that we are going to be opening up the meetings to the public, I wanted to discuss with the Oversight Committee our process for approval of minutes. Prior to this, in our meetings, we would do the approval of minutes at the next meeting. I think that now that we are going to be opening up the meetings to the public and in order to get the information out in a timely manner, I am proposing out there a vote that we now approve the minutes in a very similar manner to we did for the community risk assessment. And so Adam, if you can help me out by dropping in the chat what we're going to be voting on, I'm going to now ask members of the Oversight Committee yes or no to adopting approving the minutes in the same way that we did for the community risk assessment. And so I'm going to start going down my list here. And so I will start with Ken.
I approve.
Okay. Lauren.
Yes.
Okay. Josh.
Yes.
All right. I know Kent is online. Okay, I'll circle back to you, Ken. Nick?
Yes.
Tony? I don't see Tony online anymore. Sam, can you perhaps check if he had to rejoin? And then Ben?
Yes.
Okay, and then I'm going to circle back to Kent.
Yes.
Great. Okay. I don't know if Tony has joined back online and the other.
I'm on. Can you hear me?
You are? Okay. So Tony,
Yes.
What is your vote?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So that's 7 yeses that I've counted. As I'm the one who brought up the motion, the county also votes yes. So that is 8 yeses, and the rest of the members of our Oversight Committee are not present. So they're so not applicable on the vote there. So moving forward, we will be approving the minutes right after the meeting and posting those minutes to the website. With that being said, because we are still using our old process this time, the next item on the agenda is I do want to discuss the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. And so if you give me a moment to share my screen. At our last meeting, we had our call to order, the approval of the minutes. We had a quick discussion of the investigation process overview. And also a little bit of talking about what the incident investigation process was going to look like for this incident investigation. So now I'm going to go and ask all of the members of the Oversight Committee if they approve these meeting minutes, and we can get these final minutes posted online as well. So I will start with Josh.
Approve.
Okay, let's see, I see Tony next.
Yes.
Great. Kent,
Yes.
okay. Nick,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
okay. Lauren,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
okay. I think that's everybody, and it looks like everyone has voted yes, so then we will also approve these minutes and get these minutes posted online. Great, thank you, everybody. The next thing that I wanted to talk about on our agenda is the format for this meeting. So as I had mentioned earlier, we are now opening these meetings up to the public, very similar to how we did for the community risk assessment. However, I did want to bring to everyone's attention, while we are committed to having a transparent process through this investigative work that is being done, because of the nature of the incident investigation and root cause analysis, we want to be very mindful that in these discussions, there might be times when we are talking about information that could be considered confidential business information or sensitive information. And so due to that, the format will not be exactly as everyone is used to. There may be some meetings where the Oversight Committee will have what is called a closed session, where we will go to a breakout room to discuss information and then come back and continue the meeting. And that is really just, again, to protect any of this information that may be as a result of the incident investigation process. I think we've mentioned before that there's a lot of concerns about confidential business information, and I think this is a really good transition point for me to call on Scott Berger to give us an update on where they are at in coming to an agreement with MRC and starting the investigation work. So Scott? Scott, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Okay, that should be better. Okay,
Yes.
at the last meeting, I had reported that we had received a draft non-disclosure agreement from MRC. And again, this is addressing that subject of confidential business information. Unfortunately, the draft agreement that we had received at that time, as I reported, basically prevented us from disclosing anything to the committee without prior approval of MRC, which, as I understood it anyway, was against what the mission of this committee and the way that the industrial safety ordinance was put together. But we were assured, I think at that time by Ken Axe, that this was a sort of an aberration, and that we get a better non-disclosure agreement from MRC. And about a week later, we did receive another draft. Unfortunately, this one was even more restrictive than the previous one, and that leaves us a bit at a loss, because we can't receive any documents and begin the investigation until we have this non-disclosure agreement in place, at least the way I understand it. I did encourage MRC and the county to talk about what actually needs to be disclosed and what can be kept confidential. So hopefully that is ongoing. Maybe you guys can both talk about that. I will say that both Tim and I understand very well the idea of confidential business information, and if there's anything that we would pick up that is irrelevant to this investigation, we're certainly going to keep that confidential. But we need to be able to discuss with this committee anyway, things that might be confidential, and do that in an open, free manner.
Great, thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. And as you know, we have been in touch, and the county has had experience in matters like this beforehand. So now I'd like to turn it over to our Deputy Director, Matt Kaufman, to speak to where the county is at in this process.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you, Scott, for the update. And Scott's absolutely correct. County Council has been working with MRC's council regarding this exact issue. I will say, I think we're a bit frustrated just because the county's industrial safety ordinance does require the county to protect confidential business information and trade secrets. We do that daily, quite frankly. We do that in all of our audits, all of our inspection reports. This is not something that's new to the county. This is sort of business as usual. We always operate and do our inspections and audits and investigations, keeping in mind trade secret information and confidential business information. So from our perspective, I think this is a little bit sort of, this is already what we do, and we do this daily. So we really don't see sort of the need for a disclosure agreement, quite frankly. The industrial safety ordinance already requires the county to do this. And Scott, operating underneath this committee through a contract as an agent of the county, has to implement and abide by the industrial safety ordinance, which requires him to protect confidential business information and trade secret information. So that's where things stand. I think there's sort of this, there is back and forth going on between county council and MRC's council, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem at this time that there's been that an agreement has been signed.
Thank you, Matt. And then Ken, I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak if there is any further information that you'd like to provide to the Oversight Committee. Ken, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that you had no comments.
Okay, actually just struggling to get back to the screen so that I could find the mute button.
No worries.
Okay, so yeah, so the access to information is not an issue. The trade secret and confidential business information access to Scott and Tim, or that's not an issue. They'll be able to make, document, and present their conclusions from their investigation. They'll be able to make, document, and present their recommendations from their investigation. It's the disclosure of confidential business information and trade secrets that's still the issue. And we know, for example, county staff was in for their inspection in February and April of this year. And you know, the fact that they have access to this information, but not able to disclose the information did not impede their ability to make findings or recommendations. We're still waiting on the report. But I think the complicated thing that was new that I just heard in what Scott and Matt said is the disclosure of such information to this committee, because this committee is not the county. So that's, I think, something that needs to be explored. Now, Nicole, I think in your opening statements, you said that there would be occasions where the committee would remove themselves from the public, but still the committee includes public members on it. That's where we would still have, I think, issues, is we need to make sure that information is not disclosed to the public when it is confidential business information or trade secret information. So those are issues that we still need to have resolved.
Yeah, I agree. They do need to be resolved. And Ken, you know, to your point that we've had the county come out and do an audit or an inspection and be able to write a report without confidential business information, I would argue that in an incident investigation, root cause analysis, it can be very hard to be able to provide all of that information without being able to speak to some specifics. You know, obviously, as Matt said, we do this every single day in every single one of our activities. We are very aware of, you know, being mindful about disclosing confidential business information. But when it comes to an incident investigation, I think it would be very hard to completely eliminate any discussion of that, to have meaningful results and meaningful discussions. And I don't really want to get into a back and forth on that right now, but I just wanted to, you know, highlight why for us this is such a point of contention, because we want the Oversight Committee to be able to fully be able to have the information they need to comment on the report when it is available.
Yeah, so again, I would point to our root cause analysis as well. So we, of course, reviewed information that is confidential business information, trade secret information. It did not impede our ability to make findings, identify root causes, and make recommendations. So I think if you look at the report of the root causes and the recommendations that came from that, there's nothing cryptic or left out about any of that. It did involve analysis of trade secret information, confidential business information, but the conclusions and the recommendations were not compromised by not being able to quote the confidential business information or trade secret information.
Well, I think really the thing that is of utmost importance is for us to be able to get to an agreement so that the work can start. And, I think we just need to further these discussions and get to a resolution quickly. I do not want this to be extended any further than it has been.
That is our preference as well.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just like to make a sort of an exemplary comment or example comment, so that folks can understand what we're trying to do, and maybe what our ultimate objective is. So, for example, we may come up with a finding and state that this was a gap that we found in our investigation. At which point, the question may come up. Well, is that really a fact? And being able to show, for example, a table of data would help illustrate that. We would not necessarily put it in the report, but we certainly would want to justify it. We also may have a situation where we have a finding and MRC disputes that. They say, well, we don't agree with that at all. Well, that's where we really need to have data. And if MRC then says, well, we can't disclose the data, then it just becomes a he said, she said kind of situation. As I said, we really are not interested in things like production rates and strategies and manufacturing technologies necessarily. But if there's something that does that's wrong with the management system, we would want to be able to show that, so that so that it takes away the argument about whether it was a fact or not.
I think the other thing that we're balancing here is transparency, and the process that Nicole laid out of having essentially closed session, right? We would convene the Oversight Committee, go into closed session, have conversations with Scott Berger that may involve some of this confidential business information, but then sort of come out of closed session, report and very, in a high level of what was discussed, and then take public comment. We are doing our best as the county to preserve the confidential business information, but maintain the integrity of the investigation. So I think that's where the county stands right now.
Great. I see Josh has his hand raised, and also just as a reminder to those who are not on the panel, we will have a public comment period at the end, and that is when we will be calling on those who are not panelists to speak. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so obviously not an attorney, but is there any benefit to having the committee members, like if we signed a non-disclosure agreement and then was in closed session, could hear it, but then weren't allowed to share it afterwards? Has that ever been done? Would it make a difference?
Matt, I don't know if you want to speak to traditionally the approach we've taken.
I don't think we've ever done that before. That's never been required. And in my experience, I don't think we've ever had a situation where we had confidential business information coming out of an investigation that was done during sort of the closed session discussion. That has not happened before, nor do I recall. And Nicole, maybe you can recall, I don't think we've ever had community members or other oversight committee members sign non-disclosure agreements.
Not to my recollection.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I saw Lauren's hand and then Tony's.
Hi, I was just going to say, in my experience of managing commissions and supporting city councils, what I have seen with closed session information is that it's really a part of the code of ethics of that body. So just playing off of what Josh said, I just wonder if, I know early on we talked about norm setting, and this group and what we commit to do in terms of behaviors and activities. And I don't know if maybe there's something we can bring forward just to build some confidence that says, hey, this committee, as we embark on this process, agrees to keep confidential information confidential. That was something we've had success with in the past when it comes to commissions or city councils. And it's like an adopted resolution. So just a thought there that seemed to set an expectation of the committee members, commission members, council members to keep the information confidential.
All right, Tony?
Yeah, just some comments regarding the confidential information. This is not new. The investigation that you had several years ago with Chevron, you ran into the same problems. And somehow, after whatever number of months, it was resolved. So there's got to be a roadmap to getting this done. I mean, if you got it done with the Chevron incident several years ago, and you had an oversight committee with that, somehow the county, Chevron, and whatever, the Accutech, the contractor, worked that out. So I think there's a roadmap there. Why don't we just go to get that roadmap and follow that roadmap?
Yeah, so, Tony, what I can tell you is that, when we were working with Chevron, I think in the end, what was agreed to is that the information, was protected under health and safety code and the industrial safety ordinance by the fact that we are required to not disclose that information. And that is basically what the agreement was and was signed to. I do believe that we have been discussing various approaches, and that is one of the approaches I believe that has been pushed forward to MRC. So, as Matt and I have said, we did learn a lot from the Chevron, oversight committee. And so we are, trying to work through a way to get this resolved and to get the work started.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this doesn't wind up 6 months down the road and we're still trying to get this worked out. This needs to be done. We need to get it done, quickly and get those findings out and get any recommendations or any difference between the two root cause analysis and move forward so this doesn't happen again.
I understood, Tony. Thank you. Okay, I am not seeing any other hands from the oversight committee. In terms of status updates, Scott, I don't know if you had any other updates you wanted to provide to the oversight committee.
No, we're just ready and eager to get going. So we look forward to whatever advice that you have, and if you eventually agree that the agreement that's been presented to us by MRC is not going to interfere with our work, then we're ready to go. So, but I just wanted to make sure that we can do the job that you're asking us to do in the way that you want us to do it.
Okay, and Scott, I have to ask the question, as we continue to wait for an agreement to be signed, is this having any effect on the timeline of your ability to come out to California and review documents and, actually pursue the incident investigation in a timely manner?
Absolutely. Even if we don't get any documents ahead of time, if we go to the site to do the investigation, we're still going to we'll be looking at documents again, and we might be prevented from disclosing what we find. So until that's resolved, there really isn't anything we can do.
No, understood. I guess the question I really was asking is that if this goes for, a longer period of time, I'm not going to assume that we are your only client and only project. And so I want to make sure there wouldn't be any other delays, or anything that would impede your ability to then quickly start work once an agreement was signed.
Oh, like if we got involved in another big project or something like that. Yeah, at the moment, there's nothing like that on the horizon.
Okay,
So as soon as we
Thank
get
you.
the agreement done, the timeline we put together should be good.
okay, great, thank you. Oh, Nick?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Tony's concerns about waiting too long and the point of this is to get in there and ensure people that this isn't going to happen again. And the sooner that happens, the better we're all going to be. And the fact that MRC has already done an investigation, they should know, roughly what we're looking at and everything like that, and be, comfortable with sharing that. So, and again, what's the holdup on sharing the information while we're trying to figure out how it's going to be reported out at the end? So I don't see the point of holding up the start of this when all we're worried about is how it's going to end. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. All right, if there's no other comments from members of the Oversight Committee, before we move into the public comment period, again, I really do want to stress kind of, what the next steps in all of this are. So, we had a meeting on June 8th, and that was to present out the results of the community risk assessment. That portion is an entirely separate portion from the incident investigation. There will still be meetings that will occur for the community risk assessment. The next one will really be when we start that 45-day public comment period and have a public meeting for that final report from that consultant, which was TRC. This investigation really is now looking into what happened, why did it happen, how do we hold MRC accountable for this not occurring again? And, we are at the very beginning stages of this. Once the investigation has begun, we will not have a monthly cadence of meetings. I will be coordinating very closely with Scott to track different milestones throughout this process so that we have information to be able to bring back and present out to the committee. And then again, from there, we will follow a similar process by having a draft report out and then public meeting and reports out to the Board of Supervisors. All right, so I think with that, we can go ahead and begin our public comment period. Everyone will have 2 minutes to speak. And so I ask everyone to raise their hand so I can kind of gauge how many people we have that would like to speak, and we will be able to accommodate everybody. So Sam, I see that Craig Lazarati has his hand raised. If you can allow him his 2 minutes, please.
You should be able to talk now, Craig.
Hi, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm really surprised and disappointed to hear that the CWS, the warning system and notification, is not part of the scope of this investigation. I'm sorry I missed that earlier, but I really don't understand that, because to me, that's the key failure in all of this. And that's really the reason we even have an oversight investigation. We've had many incidents like this over the years, Spent Callus, CCU related incidents that haven't had independent investigations. And the reason we're doing it here is because of the lack of notification. And I understand that this has been referred to the DA and the FBI and others may be looking into it, but to the point of transparency, none of us are going to be privy to those discussions and what's happening in their investigations. And the public needs to know why the community warning system wasn't activated. And we need to know if this was just a failure on the part of the refinery, or if there was a failure of communication between the county and the refinery, particularly given the change in ownership and how often refineries do change ownership. The community warning system is a unique thing in our county, and we need to know what kind of communications take place between the county authorities and these refinery and industrial owners about the rules and regulations of the community warning system. And that really should be part of the scope of this committee. And then finally, just on the confidentiality issues, I just want to emphasize to MRC, your ability to rebuild trust with the public depends on transparency. And I hope you keep that in mind as you try to resolve this issue, because we need transparency around this, and this doesn't help imbue us with that confidence. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Craig. So just really quickly, I want to, address your comment. So in the incident investigation root cause analysis, we are really looking at the cause of the incident. While the failure to notify did not allow the county's incident response team to react in the moment to be able to provide the best direction to the public, the failure to notify really is a violation of the health and safety code law and therefore needs to be investigated by the district attorney. That failure to notify is not the root cause of why 24 tons of spent catalyst was released out into the community of Martinez. And that's what the incident investigation root cause analysis is really focusing on. And that's why we have different investigations occurring for those.
Nicole, can I just add in one thing really fast? It's not technically a violation of state law regulation, the industrial safety ordinance, to have an incident. We're investigating the root cause of the incident. What is a violation of state law is failure to notify. And that was referred to the district attorney, to the investigative authority that can do a full investigation and could follow up with enforcement actions. And the district attorney accepted that referral. So we're really on sort of two different paths. One is violation of state law and regulation, and another is investigating the root cause of an incident, which is really what this body is doing here.
Thank you. I'll move on to our next speaker, AG.
Your 2 minutes starts now.
Hi, my name is Alicia G'day. I'm from Healthy Martinez Refinery Accountability Group. We are nearly 7 months past the incident. And despite claiming to be fully cooperating and transparent with investigators, it is so disappointing to hear that the Martinez Refining Company is blocking this investigative body from even beginning their work by refusing to sign a disclosure agreement. This is absolutely unacceptable. As mentioned, this investigation and oversight is not new. The ISO is clear and there is precedent in our county. We see in the community the increase in MRC donations and public relations campaigns to clean up your name. Your actions and lack of transparency speak louder than any of those acts. Stop trying to buy us off and allow this investigation to happen and be better neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Jillian.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to reiterate the last comments, but I'm Jillian Elliott from Healthy Martinez Refinery Accountability Group. I have concerns, definitely, that it feels like these are stalling tactics by the refinery. It's important 7 months out that we actually get to the root cause of this. And based on reporting last week, I would also hope that in this process that the root accountability look at when this happened or a very similar incident like this happened in 2001. Yet at that time, the refinery recognized what was happening, dealt with it as quickly as it could, and also let the public know. I think it's important to understand what's different from that incident versus the one around Thanksgiving. Is it competency of the management? Is the equipment failed even further? I think those are important questions a lot of us have, because this is not the first time this accident has happened. And I think that there's a general concern that a similar accident could happen anytime. And we don't have the trust that we're going to be told the truth. It's absolutely essential that the confidentiality agreement be signed and the investigation can be done.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, I see that Kathy has their hand raised. So we'll go to Kathy next.
2 minutes starts now.
Yes.
Yes, hi Kathy, we can hear you.
Hi. Okay, thank you. This information, this disclosure at this point to the public at large who are going to be or are here now or going to be reading about this really leaves a bad taste in our mouth. We may have thought that MIC and PBF were not wanting to be accountable. And this is the playbook that they're following. I really feel that they should assess more clearly the public's feelings about what they have done and what they need to do to correct it. I think that's all I need to say.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, I am going to do a last call for anyone who wishes to make a public comment. Okay, we've already allowed Alicia and Kathy to speak. I am not seeing other hands raised at this time. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
clarify the response to the person that spoke earlier that asked whether or not the root cause would include discussion of the failure to notify. Could you clarify, will the root cause, though, look at whether either technological or physical reasons that the facility potentially could not have detected the release be part of the root cause in terms of their failure to notify?
I want to see if I can rephrase your questions, just so I make sure that I'm understanding what you're asking. So you're asking if the root cause analysis is going to look at the ability to detect levels of spent catalyst. Is that what you're saying, Michael?
Yeah, in real time, their ability to detect the release. That is, was there a failure of monitoring equipment available or in operation or properly operated or monitored that led them to not notify part of the root cause?
I understand what you're saying. So, I think what we can say is this, because it's very hard to say what the root cause analysis is going to look at or not look at, I think, at this point. But it is going to be investigating why a release was allowed to happen. And I would believe that, detection and any sort of alarms or anything that would alert somebody that, there is something occurring in the system would most definitely have to be part of looking at the root cause analysis, not even from the perspective of failure to notify, but just being able to understand, the situation at hand and how, the amount that was released was allowed to be released. But I don't know if, Scott, you have anything additional to say to that. But really, it is looking at all components of process safety and failures of different management systems to see what did actually contribute to that release.
Yeah, Nicole, what I would add to that is that, what we want to do in this investigation is understand the root causes of why the incident occurred. So why did the release occur? And then to the degree that mitigation of the release might have played a factor, why was the release not mitigated? And so if we, in the process of our investigation, found that there was a detection system that prevented the release from being mitigated, excuse me, then it would come up. But we've been asked not to look at the actual notification. So once there's a knowledge of the release, that would be it for us. We wouldn't get into the notification because that's part of an ongoing investigation from the Attorney General.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, I am not seeing any additional hands raised. So I think with that, then we'll be able to conclude our meeting. The recording and meeting minutes will be posted early next week. And we will continue to use the same methods we have been using to communicate the next meeting minutes. For those of you who might not already have signed up for newsletter updates, I encourage you to go to our website, cchealth.org/hazmat/MRC, and to sign up to be able to receive those notifications. All right, and with that, I will adjourn our meeting.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Lauren. Bye.